was a son. He was devoured by earth. There was a God. They call him the Father. And there was a means to make a valley with grace out of this hole that I've dug for me.
Good afternoon and welcome to Healing Our Brokenness, episode 55, entitled The Gift of Community. When you think of the word community, what thoughts come to your mind? Do you think about the people in your neighborhood? Do you think about the women who are involved in social groups of society? Do you think about the parents' clubs for your children's school? What comes to mind when we think about the word community? When I think about the word community, it takes me way back to the days of being a child. And my first introduction of community was in my grandmother's home when we lived in the projects, and those projects were called Madden Park homes. And during those times, everyone in those particular set of projects looked out for everybody else's kids. Oh, you're so-and-so's daughter. You're so-and-so's granddaughter. We all looked out for each other. And oftentimes what would happen would be you would see different things on the news that occurred in different projects. And people had this negative connotation of what the projects were like. What they did not focus on, and what a lot of people do not have not been aware of, is that there was a lot of community in the projects. There were a lot of people there who were on the same level, struggling like we were. And if it got down to the point my grandmother was making a cake, or she was fixing pork chops or liver, and she realized she was just short of maybe a half a cup of rice, a third a cup of rice, she would say, go on down there, girl, to so-and-so floor and ask so-and-so if she could borrow about a third cup of flour. And she was very precise in her measurements. And we always had to remember that even when we would go pick up things from the grocery store for her. But people looked out for each other, and they looked out for each other's kids. And one thing that I appreciated with my grandmother is she did not turn anyone away. Even as poor as we were, we did not have a problem having something to eat each day for each meal. She'd take $6 and stretch it all kind of ways. And what would end up happening is that if someone came by that was unexpected, somehow we had enough food left over for that particular person. She always knew how to stretch those meals, whether it was oxtail soup or a neck bone soup. There was always a chicken soup, or she would make chicken and dumplings. So whatever type of soup or whatever type of meal she made, she stretched it. And there was always enough for everybody, and she never turned anyone away. And this was whether it was someone that had that was an alcoholic, or whether it was someone that had, if their brokenness were drug addictions. She never turned anyone away. And that was my first introduction of community there. My grandmother's home and the projects, and the people who lived in the projects and took care of one another. And even today, if I was to see quite a few of those people, they still would feel like they had a responsibility there to look out for you because you were so-and-so's daughter or so-and-so's granddaughter. My second taste of community is when I went to church, when I accepted Christ as my Savior. My mother's friend had been inviting my mother forever and a day for us to come to her church. And she kept telling my mother that she had nieces that went there and I could play with her nieces. And it was on and on. And I wore my mother down till she finally agreed, yes, we're going to go to church. And I was so happy. And I accepted Christ as my Savior on Easter Sunday. I got a chance to see community up close and personal at that church. We would be at church the majority of Sundays from 9 o'clock when Sunday school started all the way until 10 o'clock at night when the broadcast ended. And for some reason, being at fellowship for the broadcast was just the thing. That was the place to be. It was the thing to do. So if as a teenager you weren't going back for a broadcast, you were really missing out on something. You had kids crying, the teenagers crying because they wanted to go back to broadcast. They would rather have whoopings than to be punished from going back to church and serving God and being a part of the atmosphere of people and the energy and the community that was there. And as I said, we'd be there from Sunday school, a lot of Sundays, all the way through 10 o'clock at night. Sometimes at 3 o'clock, we'd have an afternoon program, whether it was like the usher board or the young adult board or something like that. And sometimes we'd go to another church and we called it the visiting church Sundays. Then we'd come back, we'd have Vesper Hour or some other thing in between. We'd have Baptist Training Union going on around 6 something in the evening. But everybody at the church knew what was going on in everybody else's lives is what was happening. And that sense of community, it was like none other. We would sit down in the church basement, and that's where they had the food down there. You could buy you a whole dinner for $5 after church. And we had Miss Genevieve cooking the chicken wings, and we would have pound cake and 7-Up cake, and we had macaroni and cheese, sweet potatoes, fried chicken. You can get the chicken wings and chicken breasts, chicken legs. We had all the fried chicken. We had greens and cornbread. We had the whole 9 yards. But we had a good time in just sitting there fellowshipping with one another. And a lot of that has been missed in this day and age. On Sundays, we are running to kids' basketball games. We're running all kind of places. But we're not congregating together and keeping that community as it once was when I was a kid. It was just something that was special about that time. And these particular individuals were like extended family to me. And so when I had to take that leap and decided I would go over to my ex-husband's church with him because he was very critical of my church, that community was gone. This extended family that I have known for the longest, all of them were gone. And it was something that I had not dealt with and really had not thought about up until recently. And this was about a good almost 2 months ago. Basically, now I'm thinking about it, 2 months ago, when the former pastor of the church that I grew up in, when he passed away, and I attended the funeral. Death has a way of bringing some things up that you never thought would be brought up before. And so when he passed, it brought back all of the feeling of the community that I had and all of the loss, just tons of loss. And as I sat there at the funeral service in this pretty big church, my mind began to wonder. I wonder if so-and-so is still alive. I wonder if so-and-so is still alive. I wonder how their kids are doing, and if their kids have had kids, and if so, how many. But my mind began to wonder, and I began to grieve all of the lost relationships. God did bless me to regain this community, and that was in the year of 2012, in that fall, when I started attending Mom's ministry at another church. And then I joined other small groups. And that's when God really got a hold of my heart, and I began to start to receive what I had been missing out from all those years, ever since I was at age 21 when I got married. So from 21 all the way up until the time I was 39 and a half, basically, I had missed out on the community, that feel that I'd had growing up as a child. And in the book of Acts, we see how the Christians met on a daily basis. And that reminds me of what we had going on Sunday after Sunday, all day long, fellowshipping with each other at church, napping in church, eating together at church, just communing and being in one spirit and one body and one united church. And I began to receive that again. And in the book of Acts, when they talk about it, they said that no one was without. And I began to see that. I had extreme financial situations going on, and people began to be the hands and feet of Jesus to me. And so when it comes to community, what community does, and the way that it becomes a gift for us, is that we are able to take our eyes. Number one, we're able to take our eyes off of self. We can serve others. And number two, when it comes to having a community to come into our homes, we're able to show off Jesus. We're able to let everybody know, welcome. This is my home. This is his home. We are here to serve one another, to listen to one another, to let each other know that we belong here together. We're not excluding anyone. We are letting each person be free to exemplify the specific talents and gifts that God has given them. I want to thank you so much for listening to episode 55, The Gift of Community. And if you'd like to check out some blog posts, you can head over to valleyofgrace.blog. That's valleyofgrace.blog. And we have recipes. I have devotionals. I have information on PTSD/trauma. There's a ton of information out there as poetry that might stir up your heart. And you can also find the link in the menu to purchase books. Thank you. And until next time.
You turn those valleys into places to learn instead of burn and perish away. And nights never so cold without his grace. How could I say that I've seen the world from his great love? How could I know what he could love? How would I've seen what he had in store for me if I didn't give up and let him be my valley of grace, where things would change and maybe they'd take up the cross high again. The valley of grace never was the same after he had died. The love that refines gonna fade away when I see I need more of Him. He whispers the sweetest of mercies upon my ears, and I won't go back the way it was again, 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 and now. A valley of grace where things would change. I've seen the lights of valley of grace where things have changed. Oh, I've seen so much for me.